Over the past 24 hours, there has been some amazing online investigation work being done into the death of Seth Rich. Of course, this is being done by regular citizens because the FBI, who should be doing it, is not allowed to because it is becoming more and more apparent that this is an actual cover-up. And there's definitely some pieces of the puzzle that are fitting together. The first interesting development involves a good friend of Rich named Joe. He's the general manager at Lou City Bar. It is said that Joe is the last person to have seen Seth alive. Joe also happened to be at the White House 4 days before Seth's murder. He was in the White House visitor logs, and you can see from his photos on his Facebook that he was there. So what's the big deal? A lot of people tour the White House. What the big deal is this picture here. As you can see, there's a very clear view of this pool. When you look at a blueprint of the White House, you can see that that Oval Office is the only room that lines up with that pool, which means Joe was in the Oval Office that day, which is not a regular place that tourists are allowed into. So what was Joe, a bar manager and friend of Seth Rich, doing in the Oval Office under the Democrats' administration 4 days before Seth's death? And maybe there's a completely unrelated explanation for this, which would be absolutely fantastic, but for now this is what we know. I really don't want Joe to be connected from this, but we just have to put that out there. Joe said that Rich was unusually drunk that night. The 27-year-old DNC staffer could normally throw back Bell's beer for hours without a problem, but that night he was uncharacteristically unsteady on his feet as he made his way out the door. This was just not Seth. I never saw him drunk or even tipsy. So we have to allow for a possibility that Seth could have been drugged that night. The toxicology report hasn't come back yet, and even if it did and he was drugged, obviously that would be suppressed. But Joe did tell CrimeWatchDaily.com.
I heard there was a bunch of robberies lately by a man with a silver gun in the area.
Really? A man with a silver gun. Did he have a mustache and a top hat? It's like he's describing Oddjob from N64's GoldenEye with the golden gun. Yeah, Joe, that'll really throw the cops off your trail for sure. It was a man with a silver gun.
A man with a silver gun.
Yes, I'm a man with a silver gun. No big deal.
Be on the lookout for that, folks. Joe also went on vacation right after his dear friend's death. I'm not saying anything. I really hope Joe had nothing to do with this. I'm just stating what we know, and you can draw your own conclusions from this. That Seth Rich was unusually drunk. He had a friend working at the bar who had met with someone at the Oval Office 4 days prior. It's interesting. The next thing that we know is that if Seth left the bar at 1:45 and the police responded to gunshots at about 4:20 a.m., that leaves us with about 2.5 hours where we don't know what happened. Apparently, Seth did say he was going to go to the Wonderland Ballroom on his way home, but I haven't read any reports confirming that he was actually there. And even if he was there and he stayed until close at 3 a.m. in his unusual drunken state, it would have been about a 30-minute walk home, not double that. And even if it was that, there's a lot of cameras on this way home. Somebody went out and mapped where all these cameras are. Why wouldn't one of those been looked at? If there's such a big reward out for this information, even if you owned a private camera, why wouldn't you be looking to see if you picked up Seth walking home? Or maybe you have looked and he wasn't there. Maybe he was shoved into a car at Lou's bar by a man with a silver gun and driven near his house and shot. It's just interesting, and I'd love it if there was a way to find out if there was any images of him walking home. Because apparently he was talking to his girlfriend at the time that he was walking home and attacked. So the police responded to the sounds of gunshots. I don't know who called the cops, but that would be interesting evidence as well. The police showed up wearing body cams, and Seth was alive and conscious when they found him.
The officers who were there, and they said, yeah, he was quite talkative.
So he hadn't lost enough blood to lose consciousness at this point, and the hospital he went to was less than a kilometer away, which meant that he probably arrived to the hospital alive as well. There is an anonymous medical leak that has said that he arrived alive, he had surgery, he was stable, and then there was some very suspicious activity around him and he suddenly died. Of course, it's hard to know when it's anonymous. From what I read, it was very detailed medically, and you'd have to at least be a doctor to be able to fake that. From what I know from my medical and surgical career, it does line up with the injuries. The other interesting thing that would give motive to kill Seth Rich was he was working on a website called iwillvote.com that had to do with a class action lawsuit that the DNC was under for suppressing Bernie supporters. There were two different databases, one for Bernie and one for Hillary. And of course, the one for Hillary helped voters, and the one for Bernie suppressed the voters, and Seth worked on both of them. That alone is enough motive to kill him, regardless of if he was the WikiLeaks whistleblower, which I still think he is. But Rich's family and the Democratic left-wing press is saying that there's no ties to WikiLeaks, all of this is fabricated, it's a joke, which is, interesting that if your child had passed away, you would think that any type of investigation work, even if it doesn't lead to anything, is still better than nothing. The reason why it's kind of suspicious is that Rich's family spokesman is from the DNC crisis management firm, and he's acting smug as shit on Twitter. So this guy says it's imperative that someone get in touch with Seth Rich's family and show them what Brad Bauman is saying to the press. Likely they don't know. And Brad Bauman responds, lol, oh, they know. If they're going to kill someone and try to repress that, they're also trying to repress the family's response as well. And it's just so transparent that Brad Bauman is working for Hillary Clinton as well, right? Anyway, this is what we know for now. I'm going to keep updating with more information as we know. And if you don't hear from me again, it's probably because the man with the silver gun got me. I died in a botched robbery. Please avenge my death, you guys. And keep doing it for Seth Rich, because his name was Seth Rich, and he is a hero. And because of that, he's dead.
Just this past Sunday, a young man, Seth Rich, who worked for the Democratic National Committee to expand voting rights, was shot and killed in his neighborhood in Washington.